Dominguez, one of the only 2 losses for him.
All right, everybody, it's round number 15, the penultimate round of this Pro Tour. I'm going to send it on over to Cedric and Paul with the call.
Thank you very much, Maria. Cedric Phillips, Paul Cheon. We are here in the booth. Our final round together, but it's a very important one, my friend. I'm going to put, looks like maybe somebody into the top 8 here in Barcelona.
Yeah, several people here. And now Simon with an incredible run here. Starting out 12-0 with the concession and then a loss. So stumbling a little bit here, but still has a couple extra shots here to lock it up.
Absolutely does. It's been a very, very impressive Pro Tour here for Simon Nielsen. Handshake Tron is the name of the game and the story of the tournament. A very innovative build that when I first saw it, I had to question everything that I knew. Starting to cut a copy of Sylvan Scrying, some of those chromatic pieces as well. Starting a couple copies of Urza's Saga, but as oftentimes is the case here, Paul, that team, they know what they're doing when it comes to constructed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you heard it in the interview where Javier said, look, we decided to build this deck from the ground up. Started back to ground zero and really just question what belongs and what doesn't. Do we really need 4 Sylvan Scrying? Do we need all 8 copies of the Chromatic Star and Spheres? And ultimately, they decided they didn't.
And that decision has been a very, very good one for this incredible team. Simon Nielsen leading the way for the team here this weekend. Very similar to his journey that we saw at the last Pro Tour, at Pro Tour March of the Machine. Marco with a breeding pool. And it'll be a Crashing Footfalls on Suspend to kick things off here for him.
A little, by the time that one kind of goes online, you kind of know where you're going to be, especially against Tron in this matchup. I think the key here for Marco is to get that turn 3 Cascades going as quickly as possible. The longer the game goes, of course, Tron does have that inevitability. So Marco needs to find a way to disrupt Simon's mana, which he did right here.
Yep, and you do see that Force of Negation going to slow down that mana generation by countering that Sylvan Scrying. So I definitely agree with you. I don't like that. I don't like that.
This is not ideal here.
As that leads me to believe that may have been the draw step for the turn. And more importantly, what that means is there's not a lot of Crashing Footfalls in the deck to cascade into.
Yeah, there's 2 left. I wonder what else Marco is working with here. It looks like got a land there in hand and a Triumph?
Yeah, it looks like just a couple of lands and a Triumph at this stage of things, perhaps. This will be an expedition map here for Simon Nielsen. One of the things about Tron, of course, is that it is very redundant in being able to find its mana engine. So you counter Scrying. Well, I do have draw steps, I do have Ancient Stirrings, and I do have the incredibly powerful expedition map. But I think more importantly with this build of the deck, Paul, is that it doesn't need Tron to operate.
Right.
Of course, when it does have Tron, it kind of goes in the hyperdrive, but it can still operate on 4 mana because of the One Ring and Karn, the Great Creator.
Yeah, it can kind of just play a mid-range game too.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what's given this deck additional percentage points. Before, it was kind of, if you don't draw Tron, you just don't do anything, right? Your entire deck just has a bunch of Karn Liberateds and Wormcoil Engines that you can't cast. But now, you have 7 to 8 4-drops that are all extremely powerful and that are capable of winning the game by themselves.
Well, we don't have a Cascade effect just yet. It looks like Dead Gone was the draw here for Marco this turn. So we head back Simon Nielsen's way.
Now, if you're Marco, you have to be thrilled that land number 3 here from Simon Nielsen was a forest and not just a different Tron land here.
Sure.
So Simon has to dig that Force of Negation onto Sylvan Scrying. So important here.
Looks like it's going to be an Urza's Mine that'll be found here for Simon. So Tower is the last one to go. You do see in Simon's hand a copy of Dismember, an Oblivion Stone, and Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, and a Warping Whale. Warping Whale actually sort of good here against those Crashing Footfalls that are on Suspend.
It is an answer. The counter target sorcery mode is what you're going to be seeing in this matchup. Okay, Marco digging here, wanting to find a Cascade spell. But remember, Simon doesn't have Tron and doesn't have a way to find Tron just yet here. It's possible these Rhinos are just going to be good enough. Now, Simon does have an Oblivion Stone, right?
True.
You can play the Oblivion Stone. If you just draw land number 5, you can still crack that to kill the first Crashing Footfalls.
And we can't forget, too, the ability to play an Oblivion Stone here and also leave up Warping Wheel.
Right.
I think that's a sequence we're going to see here from Simon. So there is the powerful O-Stone. You talk about this deck's ability to play a mid-range game. It can also play a clean up all your stuff game
Right.
Via the O-Stone, and it does a fantastic job of that as well. So Crashing Footfalls is going to come off a suspend. I think there was an assumption that was going to resolve there for Marco.
I think this is a one of as well in their particular list. But hey, play one to draw 'em.
Look, they said they were going to build this deck from the ground up. Restart
That's
everything.
right.
And every single slot does count in a constructed Magic tournament. As you see, that
Ooh.
Warping Wheel be very good there. Now, I'll talk about something that's not very good. That third Crashing Footfalls that was just drawn there. partner.
Yeah. We're getting close to the point where those Cascade spells may not do anything if Marco draws Footfalls number 4.
Yeah. That is a rare occurrence in any Cascade deck, but we are starting to see some of the downside as a Crashing Footfalls.
Simon's like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is just fair magic we're seeing here, right?
Hey, these players, they have no choice but to laugh about it. I think the fair magic might be over here in just a moment, though, folks, because the One Ring has just been drawn, and there is nothing fair about that powerful artifact. It has been dominant here this weekend, and we might have the opportunity to see it on display once again.
I'll play the One Ring.
And Marco does have a Force of Negation here, though.
And it is a good card to use that on. Going to exile a ice to that, so the One Ring is long gone. Hey, we did it!
All right.
We did it!
One of them resolved?
Wow!
Okay.
The namesake of the deck has happened. 2 Rhinos on the battlefield. Worth noting, these Rhinos, of course,
Rhinos.
they do not have haste.
No, they do not. So just going to pass the turn, and that does give Simon the opportunity to untap and have access to this Oblivion Stone.
Now, this was actually a very good draw. This is the one of Fun of Boseiju that is in the deck. Now, has the opportunity to choose between blowing up the lands or the Oblivion Stone. I think you're
okay.
perhaps a little surprised by that decision, trying to cut the mana as opposed to taking out the stone.
Right, because, I mean, I think your path to victory here is just trying to win with these Rhinos as quickly as possible. But I guess if you go with the Oblivion Stone, that does give Simon 6 mana, which means you're kind of getting to the point where you don't really need Tron, right? The important card here that Marco's really concerned about is that Wormcoil Engine. 2 copies of that in the main as well. So perhaps just looking to try to power through the O-Stone and relying on the third Crashing Footfalls there, set on 3.
That one's going to be a little ways down the road as it does fall down to 2 counters now. So we're going to head back over to Marco Del Pivo, who's going to get an attack in, and Oblivion Stone will take care of those.
And Simon does draw a Wormcoil Engine here, which is going to be really, really strong.
Marco will simply pass the turn back. Lauren Revealed was the draw for the turn. Now, the One Ring was the draw here for Simon.
And that's going to resolve.
It will indeed. So, Simon will have protection for the turn. I think we might see an immediate activation, and we do. So, Dismember is the draw. It's the second one of those, and Nielsen will pass the turn back as Crashing Footfalls goes down to 1 counter.
And Simon does have the double Dismember there, too, just to kill the Rhinos if he wants. And next turn, of course, can very likely to find a mana source, right, with the draw step and 2 additional cards from the One Ring. Ooh.
Lauren Revealed does get land cycle for a basic island. Mystical Dispute was the draw step for the turn to go along with that copy of Dead Gone that Del Pivo has had in hand for quite a while. No real use for that card at this stage of things.
Right. The Dispute does give Marco the answer to a Wormcoil Engine if Simon Nielsen finds land number 6 here.
But again, what you are seeing here from this build of Tron is a One Ring activation will take place once again. Is its ability to play a drawn-out, fair-ish game.
Yeah.
Now, I will note that Marco's deck isn't, I'll say, cooperating with all of these Crashing Footfalls being put on suspend. But it is also a credit to this build of Tron by Team Handshake to be able to play this game where, truth be told, Simon Nielsen's deck isn't really firing on all cylinders either.
Yeah, this is kind of an unconventional game. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
An expedition map?
It'll be an expedition map here for Simon Nielsen. And Marco's going to give that a thought. Or at least maybe pretend, as here is a mystical dispute. Okay. Well,
Probably just paying for it here. Okay.
would have been surprised if Simon didn't.
Right. Then I see a Fear here. Could also just play that out or go for an end of turn Dismember to get one of the Rhinos off the battlefield.
Because the tenor of this game has been a little bit strange for both players. Nielsen sitting at 19 life.
Right.
It means a lot of life to work with through the One Ring and its bird encounters.
Even if you use both Dismembers, you're down to 11, and you only have to worry about one more Footfalls from this deck.
Yeah, and you do keep track of that sort of thing, too.
Right.
There's already 3 in the graveyard, so realistically, if you're Simon Nielsen, you are thinking, well, I've dealt with 3 of them.
If you deal with the 4th, I don't think Marco can win, or it's very difficult.
It's very, very hard.
You do have Murktide Regent.
Yeah,
but
other than that, there's really nothing to be that scared of. So,
all right. Well, Sylvan Scrying does mean that over the course of the next 2 turns, Simon will be able to get Tron again with that Expedition map in play.
And how Nielsen does want to take his turn is a little bit interesting here.
Yeah, and I believe Nielsen should be at 15 here.
Yeah, from the Dismember and the Phyrexian mana to cast it. We'll confirm our life totals in just a moment. Make sure we do have those correct for our viewers at home. When Simon trying to figure out exactly how to sequence this particular turn. You mentioned the Sylvan Scrying, the ability to complete Tron over the next 2 turns.
Right. And then also taking 2 here from the One Ring, so actually should be at 13.
There we are. We are current, and we do appreciate the help. Simon might be thinking about potentially resetting the One Ring as well.
Yep. I think it's important to at least use one of those effects to find a Tron piece to play this turn to set up for the full Tron next turn with that Sylvan Scrying.
Well, that Expedition map is going to find an Urza's Power Plant. Power Plant will be the land for the turn, and the One Ring will be...
And not drawing the cards here.
Yep.
Okay.
That is a conscious decision.
Absolutely. It doesn't have any counters on it, I don't think.
Nope.
Yeah.
Long day here. Long day.
14?
Yeah.
See this fetch land sacrifice here from Marco. Going to get a stomping ground. Fall down to 14. 14-13 life total, so we're going to head back Marco's way. Big draw step coming.
Yeah, but if Simon's Sylvan Scrying resolves next turn, he will have access to 10 mana. There is an Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, in Simon Nielsen's hand, so that'll be able to clean up the Rhino in play and potentially a land.
Fairly good card, that Ulamog.
Yeah. Even through a subtlety, remember it's a cast trigger, you're still getting those permanents off the battlefield.
Will Nielsen draw? The answer is yes.
Okay.
So on the end step, add a bird encounter. Down to 13 goes Nielsen. Let's make it 12. Perfect. Draw again. Another Expedition map.
All right, is it time to scry? Or just maybe naturally draw Tron here? Could also do that.
No Tower of Power naturally. So, Paul, we're going to do it the hard way.
Yep. This one's going to resolve. The time has come.
Yes, it has. The Urza's Tower is the land that Scrying does find, and of course, Simon Nielsen's going to put that directly in the play. That'll be the land drop for the turn, and things are about to get a little bit filthy.
Yep. Boom. And boom.
No muss, no fuss. Very strange game as both players comment on that indeed. Simon Nielsen going to win game number 1 here over Marco del Pivo as Mono Green Tron up a game here over Temur Rhinos. We'll see what kind of hand Marco's able to keep this time around. Looks like a hand of 7, but still no Cascaders.
No Cascaders. Does have Regent, Fire Ice to maybe stall you. Very reactive hand here, but Marco does have a good amount of sideboard cards for this matchup. It kind of makes you think he recognized that this isn't a great matchup, and he wanted to have some cards. So we're looking at Magus of the Moon, Blood Moon, an extra Boseiju, and 2 copies of Obsidian Charmaw as a way to put some pressure while also getting those Tron lands off the battlefield.
Oh, that is building a sideboard with intent.
Oh, yeah.
Like Marco has clearly identified, or at least has made a statement to himself that I don't think I can beat every deck, but I do want to try to beat Tron if I do get paired against it.
Exactly.
With that sideboard, because that's a lot. We don't see that much in people's sideboards here this week in targeting Tron. It'll be a forest after that triome. It'll be ice on the upkeep.
Great ice here.
Nope.
This prevents Simon from cracking that expedition map this turn.
And there's Force of Vigor too, which can be good against Tron. So Force of Vigor, and now, oh my, do my eyes deceive me? A Shardless Agent was the draw.
Ooh, okay.
So this deck does have Cascade spells. Okay.
Yeah, and this is the type of start that you need. On the play, so big here with that ice, slowing Simon Nielsen down, and then putting pressure on the board with a Force of Negation backup.
Ancient Stirrings here from Nielsen will yield an Urza's Mine. Just simply missing the power plant right now is Nielsen.
Yeah. And I think Marco's just going to go for it here. You just kind of have to be pretty aggressive here. Put that pressure before Simon can get Tron going.
Now, my assumption is a Shardless Agent this turn. I don't think it would be wild to see a Prismari command cast. Destroy target artifact, maybe make a treasure.
I mean, the Shardless Agent just puts Simon on a 2-turn clock with Force of Negation here. So
It's weird. I was just chanting in my head, like, please be a blood moon, please be a blood moon. which is weird.
It is rare to see a Tron player hoping for a Blood Moon, but Blood Moon Shardless Agent is not.
Blood Moon without pressure is not too threatening.
Yeah, no, not really that scary at all.
Now Simon's going no Blood Moon after this one.
That's right. So here is the Cascade, and there are the Rhinos. Nielsen will take a look at the cards that were revealed to get an idea, at least maybe a little information. Is Subtlety and Boseiju, who endures, have been pulled forward.
Yeah, Subtlety. In answer to a potential Worm Coil engine, or of course Karn the Great Creator. A temporary solution, but I think kind of the way that you want to be playing this matchup is play a turn 3 Cascade spell and just protect it for as long as you can.
And do the best that you can. That's the plan here for Marco. We're going to head back over to Simon now for his third turn. Again, we know about the Urza's Mine. That's going to be the land for the turn. We also know about the ability to search for the Tower of Power. It's going to be a Talisman first, however.
Yeah, next turn Simon will have access to 8 mana, and at the moment Marco does not have a way to disrupt the mana. However, as you can see in the hand, Force of Negation, Force of Vigor. Force of Negation 4 in O-Stone, which would be the way that Simon would want to potentially reset this board here.
This will be an attack for 10, going to cut Simon Nielsen's life total in half, will Marco Del Pivo. So down to 10 goes Nielsen. And now what's the follow-up?
Thinking, sorry. Hey, no. It's fine.
Force of Vigor was the draw step for the turn, so the alternate cast on Force of Vigor was missing a green card to go along with it.
Right.
Marco has it now. And now is there perhaps a reason to play that Prismari command now as opposed to last turn? It looks like the answer is no.
Yeah,
so
no, great, because you can't kill the map anymore, so I think he's just looking to pass and just keep up a hard cast Force of Negation here, potentially.
Power plant the unsurprising search via the Expedition map. Was curious if maybe we would see Prismari command on the Talisman, and you do see Marco is reaching for mana here a little bit.
You could do that. That would put Simon on 8 mana instead of 9, which is not a big difference, right, in the matchup.
Yeah, so now you're going to see. So what you're actually going to end up seeing here is a Prismari command on the upkeep targeting the Talisman. The modes here: destroy target, destroy target artifact, and then draw 2, discard 2. So 2 new cards coming. Of course, have to discard 2 cards as well as part of the resolution of this spell. And it looks like a Crashing Footfalls and maybe one of those copies of Force Negation maybe headed to the graveyard.
Force of Vigor, perhaps.
Or excuse me, Force of Vigor, not Negation.
Because he had a redundant copy.
Yeah.
One of the free spells.
Yes. Force is something.
Yeah. All right. So Simon's probably going to have to rely on this One Ring, but Marco does have a Force of Negation here to counter the One Ring.
Yeah.
And then I don't think Simon has anything else here. He has. That's his only play?
Yep.
That's his only play.
And there are actually 2 Force Negations in hand now, it looks like, for Marco.
Wow, so just has answers to double One Ring, even.
Simon may start the turn off with an Ancient Stirrings.
Yeah, perhaps realizing that Force of Negation is a card that's very likely in Marco's hand and looking to find maybe a Worm Coil Engine.
So here is the Stirrings to start the turn, and that's going to resolve. So top 5. Well, take one with him, will Simon Nielsen.
Is that a Worm Coil? I think that is. So how does that change things? Marco does have a Force of Vigor. That is a Destroy effect, however, not an Exile.
It is.
Does he have enough ways to deal with this Worm Coil Engine?
So the Stirrings does resolve.
Doesn't have green cards to remove with the Force of Vigor here.
So this is going to depend on how the attacking and the blocking does go, as here's the
Right.
Worm Coil Engine. Important to remember here that these Rhino tokens have trample. And if it does come
Correct.
up here in just a moment, we'll see exactly why. So step 1 is an Otawara. Now here's the attack.
So you can actually destroy the shardless agent.
If I
So
blind here, attach Prismari command.
Here we go.
Give
Simon
it-
will tell
Simon,
us.
explain it to
I
us.
think I cannot beat that. I can beat a force. Kinda. Force of Vigor. So why would you pitch a Force of Vigor? Pivo.
Simon trying to put the pieces together here.
The only reason you would do that is because you have a second one. If I block there, it goes well. Yeah, so if I block there,
But with that Prismari command in Marco's hand,
these two things.
this should be a lethal attack. Even if he blocks Shardless Agent, right?
How many cards?
You kill the Shardless Agent with the Prismari command and deal 2 damage to Simon Nielsen, putting him down to 8, and the Rhinos should finish him off. And Simon will not be able to gain the life here
Right.
off the Worm Coil Engine.
Now the question is do both of these players see this play?
Cards.
Right. I think Marco does.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him credit here.
I'll block you.
Let's hear him talk about it.
Destroy artifact to them steal.
Yes.
There you go.
Yep.
So, Marco immediately sees that play of destroy that Worm Coil Engine and deal 2 damage with the Prismari command. And we are on to a third and final one here between Nielsen and Del Pivo. Well, now we see some opening hands, but we see a number that is unkind here for Simon Nielsen, down to 5 cards. Now, the Tron deck does mulligan well.
Right.
I will say that, but 5 cards is still 5 cards. Paul.
Oh, but does draw natural Tron here.
Wow.
Has Tron in hand on the play. Now, Marco does have Magus of the Moon here to stop it, but won't. At least for one turn, Simon will have access to 7 mana.
That's right.
Star. Green
So kick things off with a sphere into a star, into another Tron piece. We'll see if this star does resolve, and it will. So it's a triumph for Marco to kick things off, and now the second turn we'll have to see. I think it is worth noting as well that there's a Boseiju over there for Marco.
There is the one of Boseiju. I believe there's a second copy
There is indeed.
as well. So I think he's going to go for the Boseiju into probably the Magus of the Moon next turn. So
So the power plant gonna bite the dust. The mine is still on the battlefield. A forest is coming. Shuffle and present.
Should've drawn
And
something
while
that
they
was
work on that, let's take a look at Marco's hand here, Paul. You've got that Obsidian Charmaw, Shardless Agent to generate, of course, those Rhinos. Subtlety and some blue cards to go alongside with it in the aforementioned
this
Shardless
is a
Agent.
fantastic hand.
And a Force Negation. And we already know how good Magus of the Moon can be against this deck.
Right.
And the third land is already rolled up. So this is a doozy of a hand here for Marco.
Absolutely. So Simon plays another Tron land here. I mean, Marco can simply just play a Charmaw and just eat up one of these Tron lands here, as there would be 2 colorless lands in play. And with the Charmaw, that would reduce the cost to 3 mana next turn.
Simon's going to start things off with a star. Well, Ulamog, well, that's a really good card, but we're a little ways away from that. There's a Saga's going to the battlefield. There's your trigger. A little bit of mana. And now it's an Oblivion Stone.
And the question for Marco here is, do you Force of Negation?
The show floor will
And the answer is going to be no.
close
So,
in 5 minutes.
O-Stone's in.
But don't worry.
And let's see what Marco wants to do on his third turn of the game.
PM. Please wrap up your final purchases.
Crashing Footfalls being the draw step. That one's irrelevant. That won't change much in the decision making.
Yeah, I think we're just going to see an Obsidian Charmaw here to slow down Simon while also just having a nice threat on the battlefield. And this card
19?
was tailor-made for this matchup. This
It
the
was.
reason why he's got it in the sideboard right here.
Yep.
This is why.
Marco, one of the few players here this weekend that we have watched, but also in analyzing the deck list before the tournament as a team, not many people having this level of Tron hate.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Tron players banked on.
And you know what? Really paying off for this tournament,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You look at the top tables, so many Tron decks.
Yeah, this could be the Tron Destroyer. If there are Tron haters out there, of which I think we know there are many, Marco is your hero.
Oh, yeah. Wait, you think there are people who dislike this Tron deck?
I've heard
Yeah?
a thing or two on the Bird app. Not a lot of huge fans.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Saga's going to go up to 2 counters on it now. So the ability to create a construct here for Simon. But given the mulligan to 5, the options in hand are somewhat limited. Talisman of Resilience was the draw for the turn.
Pretty rough.
Karn the Great Creator. We're not there just yet. And without Ulamog, we're a long way away from that.
Yeah, I mean, you can run out the Talisman this turn, but probably it looks like Simon's going to be looking to just make constructs here instead. Try to race.
16.
Nielsen going to fall down to 16 from that attack from the 4/4 flying Charmaw.
Yeah, and I wonder, is it time to just go ahead and make some Rhinos this turn?
Well, there is maybe some interest in the Magus this turn as well. I mean, the options are plentiful as you see another basic being found here in the basic forest via the wooded foothills.
But given that Simon is 2 turns away from Tron, perhaps you want to add a little more pressure to the battlefield instead.
Sure.
Right? Because you go for the... Oh, no. Like your line here.
I don't like your land, sorry.
I'll make a construct.
Marco making a slight apology about not liking Simon's lands.
I don't like...
I don't think he's that sorry at
No way.
at 11-3 in the main feature
No
match of the Pro
way.
Tour. I don't think he's that sorry. Chromatic Sphere, the draw.
Yeah, that's fair. The fact that you get to just kill the Urza Saga there is
Yeah.
so strong. And 2 lands here with the O-Stone. Oof.
How many cards? 3?
Simon's got a big, big hill to climb here to come back.
And Marco's hand is quite good.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a Talisman.
Now this construct is a 4/4 here.
Spear.
Yeah, 4/4 now after that
All right.
sphere. So
Can you go?
Yeah.
All right, keeping it back on defense here.
Crashing Footfalls will tick down to 3 on the suspend. And we'll find out what the draw step was here for Marco in just a moment. Marco's moving very quickly because it's time to bring some Rhinos to the battlefield.
Yeah, Rhino time here, going to be cutting down that clock here. And of course, the Charmaw has flying, so we'll be able to fly over this Golem token.
No, it's fine.
Those cards from the Cascade will be randomly placed on the bottom.
Wrong.
The Crashing Footfalls will resolve, and the Charlotte's Agent is now in the battlefield as well. So a very quick 10 power.
Yeah, and this is going to put Simon down to 12 this turn. Next turn, if a Rhino gets blocked, that's still an attack for 12, which would be exactly lethal. Simon only has access to 3 mana. Even if he draws a land, does not have the ability to blow up that Oblivion Stone that he has in play.
We're going to head back Nielsen's way, and this might be his last draw step of this round.
Man, what a hateful sideboard here.
It is extremely,
man.
extremely hateful. And in Modern, we've talked about this, and so have the many players that we've interviewed all weekend long. You can't beat everything.
Yep.
So you have to make a real conscious decision on what you want to beat and make sure you have the right hate to do so. Marco is demonstrating that in spades of, I want to beat Tron, and I've got the right cards to do it.
I dislike this deck.
That's right.
I dislike this. I'm going to choose to beat this deck
I don't
after
know-
sideboard.
I don't know how many people registered the Charmaw. It's not very high, and it's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah. Because it's tough. When you put that card in your sideboard, you're like, okay, what percentage of the field is going to be Tron? Because I'm only really bringing it in that one specific match.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about is You make your decision on what you want to beat, and then you hope you get paired against those decks, right?
Sometimes, a lot of the times, you'll see people play more versatile sideboard cards like Blood Moon.
Absolutely.
It hits multiple decks, but when you're playing a card like Charma, you're like, all right, I'm out for you, Tron, because I know I want to beat you. I hate losing to you. I'm going to play this dragon. I'm going to beat you.
And in the case of Marco, we're seeing both. And they are quite good, as Simon Nielsen is in between a rock and a hard place. Going to sacrifice that Chromatic Sphere to draw a card. Picked up a copy of Expedition Map, but I think that's going to be a little too late. As it'll be a little more mana here via the Forest and the Talisman. Take a pain and cast the Dismember. Force negation
and a
says,
Force.
I don't
He's tapped
think
out.
so.
And that should lock it up.
Marco Del Pivo, you can celebrate, my friend. Your sideboard worked to perfection. Defeating Simon Nielsen 2 games to 1. Temur Rhinos going to get the job done.
Oh,
He's fired up, Paul, and he
wow.
should be.
Look at him. Look at how excited he is. It's almost as if he feels like he top 8'd. It's going to be close.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to let the kind of standings kind of flesh itself out here at the end of this round, but he is extremely, extremely excited here. Defeating Simon Nielsen. Simon now 3 losses in a row.
Yes.
Still has one more round to guarantee a slot, but has to earn it.
And it is worth noting, and I know Maria and Monty did this a little bit earlier, Marco did defeat Javier Dominguez on day number 1 in Constructed. Of course, Javier playing the Tron deck, the very popular Team Handshake Tron deck, and now that's another member of Team Handshake that was defeated. Paul, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but those Team Handshake players that are right on the cusp of making top 8, they don't want to play against Marco.
No, absolutely. Marco, if Simon is not locked for top 8, he's going to be crossing his fingers and going to be rooting for both Simon and Javier.
Yes.
Because he wants to play against those decks.
All day long with that sideboard. So, congratulations again to Marco on a huge win. He celebrates it, and with good reason. Moving on to 12-3 here in Barcelona. More Magic on the way, my friends, here from beautiful Barcelona, Spain. Maria and Monty are going to tell you all about it right now.
Hey everybody, well after round number 14, Javier Dominguez gave Christian Calcano a big hug after his win. Now they gotta play, coming up here in round 15, Mono Green Tron Muir.
I'm getting deja vu. Handshake Tron in the hands of Javier Dominguez. Regular Tron, I guess you can call it, in the hands of Christian Calcano. He already beat it once last round with Simon Nielsen. Can he do it again?
Friends paired up in a mirror match coming up after this.
Welcome back to round number 15 of Pro Tour The Lord of the Rings here in Barcelona, Spain. Players are playing in my favorite part of the tournament. It's where we're getting one step closer to punching our top 8 tickets, Paul. It's the pressure time, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, this is another great matchup here. You even saw in that last round because Christian Calcano went up against Simon Nielsen. And Simon Nielsen is Javier's teammate. But after Christian won, you saw Javier go to his good friend Christian and still congratulate him on
That's
that.
right. And now they're paired up against one another in a cruel twist of fate. You do see the records here, 12-2 for Dominguez, 11-2-1 here for Calcano. Mono green Tron mirror, but there are some differences between the two decks. On one side for Dominguez, it is the Handshake Tron deck that is taking this tournament by storm. For Calcano, it's a little bit more of a traditional take, but that traditional take, well, it's defeating it at least a little bit,
Right.
that new take on things. So as you see these two good friends hug it out, now they got to go to battle on the battlefield. But I think they're going to have a lot of fun doing so, which should make for a lot of fun for us here in the booth and for you at home. Game number 1 between Calcano and Dominguez is underway as it's an Urza's Tower and Expedition map to get things started.
Yeah, so a few small differences. I think oh, well, look at it's almost like they just mulliganed to 0. Calcano on a mold of 4. Oh no, excuse me, 3, and a Javier and a mold of 4 here. So we'll see who's the first one to get Tron. But Calcano missing land drop number 2 here.
Now, Calcano does have Tron rolled up insofar as there are 2 maps and a Tron piece already there.
Right.
It's just a little bit of a delay of when is that second land going to show up here for Christian.
Yeah, and what's Javier working with? Does he have a Sylvan Scrying here?
Well, we know that Javier does have one
Does.
Tron piece, and it looks like a Sylvan Scrying will take care of the other problem. So Javi will play that Sylvan Scrying to find an Urza's power plant.
Needs a mine or a tower here, Christian Calcano, to keep pace with Javier's start.
And it looks like Calcano missed.
Yep, he missed. Now Javier needs a threat here. What do you got?
That's the missing piece to the puzzle. It'll just be a chromatic sphere right now.
Could be anything. There we go.
There's that Tron piece. Here's that sphere. So sacrifice that. Mana floating, another sphere. So now, yep, so crack that. And there's a ring.
Okay.
This is legal, right? So I played this, and then I played this too.
Yep. They're going to make sure that Javier did this all correct. 2 friends playing a little quick here, but still plenty of mana to do all of these things. So Javier just wants to make sure alongside Christian that they do everything correct.
Yep. Every time you play a sphere and you cycle it, it does cost you 1 mana.
Correct.
So Javier should...
And now there's a sphere.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah, this is rough. I mean, Javier's bound to find something here. So many draws with that 1 ring, and that should lock it.
That'll take care of it. There's a Karn the Great Creator. Those expedition maps, among other things, are useless now at this point. So Javier Dominguez is going to win in game number 1 over against his good pal, Christian Calcano. Calcano will be on the play here for game number 2, and we'll see how many cards these players start with this time. Okay, so it's Javi's turn to start with 4
And this
cards.
is very common when you're playing the Tron deck.
Absolutely.
You just have to you have to mulligan aggressively because it's so important that you find Tron or have a way to disrupt your opponent's Tron in this matchup.
Absolutely.
Guess I should have been on the draw.
So it'll be expedition map here for Calcano. There's another Tron piece. Okay, so Tron is about to be online for both of these players. My goodness.
What an engaging matchup here.
Yeah, it just depends on what you like.
Right? That's fair.
We celebrate the whole rainbow during this modern Pro Tour. We've seen a little bit of everything. These players taking a lot of mulligans to get 7 mana as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's just one I'm worried about.
Some friendly banter between the two. Curious to see exactly what Calcano wants to do on this turn. The straightforward play, of course, sacrifice the map, go get a tower, play that, and move
Play
forward.
something.
Yeah. Now, will that be what actually takes place?
Yep.
We'll end up seeing.
Okay. But we, of course, know Javier end of turn is going to have Tron of his own, but will have access to 7 mana on his turn.
That's not a good sign.
Christian will play that tower and pass the turn back. So Javi's very
right.
quickly is going to sacrifice an expedition map, go get that tower of power.
I'm sure Christian would love an extra Urza's Tower on his side of the battlefield.
Or for Javier just to not have one.
Yeah.
Corte mágico.
So let's see what Javi does draw. Looks like maybe
What
an Oblivion
do
Stone.
you have?
All right.
Okay.
Now, in the Tron
Not
here,
the worst.
that one's beatable.
Yeah.
That one's beatable.
Remember, Christian's version has 2 copies of Karn Liberated in the deck.
That one is beatable. Warping Whale is going to make a Scion.
So if you go with Urza land, you could play Ulamog,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Warping Whale didn't have anything to counter, but it does make a Scion.
Okay, is it
There's a Tron
Ulamog?
piece.
This is Ulamog.
Yeah, moving that
Big.
quick. That's
Get
gonna do a
both
little
Tron
something,
lands.
something.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
These are some fast games.
they are some fast games indeed. The calculator, Christian Calcano, are going to
Okay.
tie it up here, and we're going to head on to game number 3. Starting hand size check.
Right. How many mulligans?
7 and 5.
Okay, 7 and 5. And Javier does have Tron here on turn 3.
Well, let's see if Calcano can keep up with this. Calcano has
Oh.
an expedition map and a Tron piece.
There is the map. Okay. Boseiju?
Nope.
Nope. All right. What do you have, Javier?
Well, it's as easy as 1, 2, 7, folks. We're going to see what the 7 mana does yield here for Javier on turn number 3. Because Calcano will have the same, so it's up to Javi with that 5-card hand to do something brutal. That's 7
7 mana.
Let me
Karn, the one of.
Oh, let me talk to you.
The one of.
It is time to start
Okay.
eating some lands.
Time to chomp on some Tron lands here, and it's gonna be extremely difficult here for Christian to get out of this.
Remember, this is a one of fun of here for Team Handshake. This used to be a mainstay, a reason to play Tron.
You play
Over the past decade, this card was a 4 of, but slowly, over the past year or so, players have gotten away from this because Magic has brought some very powerful alternatives to the table.
Right.
But, Paul,
Still
there's
gotta play.
there's nothing better than the OG.
I mean, turn 3 Karn.
Come on.
That's,
Come on.
That's the story. So, here we go.
Javi did target that Urza's Tower with the minus, so that'll be exiled here shortly. Calcano, of course, sacrificing the expedition map in response to go get Urza's mine. Calcano going to have some real difficulty, of course, assembling Tron while Karn is on the battlefield.
Right, because sometimes, I mean, you just play the Karn and just don't even bother picking up. You just get both of the Tron lands, and just that puts you so far ahead.
We're going to head Calcano's way. He has slowed down just a bit. Very tough situation here.
Yeah. What can he even find here?
At this stage of things, because I've been here a time or two, you just have to be redundant.
You just gotta
you just have to keep assembling.
power through.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. Just keep playing Tron lands.
Yep. So here's the Stirrings. Boseiju among those cards, but it's not a Boseiju game anymore.
No.
In my estimation, even though I don't have a good look at Christian's hand, this is a keep assembling type of thing because Tower was revealed in those 5 cards from Ancient Stirrings, right? So
Right.
if Karn were to go up right now, okay, you get one of the cards out of my hand, but then I can present Tron of my own
Yep.
and maybe get myself out of this situation, which more or less forces Javier to destroy one of those lands, which of course eliminates the Karn due to its loyalty. Now, it looks like Calcano
okay.
is going to go a different direction with the Boseiju.
Now, it really depends on what Javier's follow-up is this turn,
Yes,
right?
it does.
Vamos a ver aquí también.
Probably going to get maximum information here before deciding what to do with this Karn.
Which I like quite a bit. This will be 4 mana, and it'll be a copy of the One Ring.
Okay.
That's going to end the battlefield
Yep.
tap because Javi's going to use it right away. Haywire Might, the draw. Three mana from the tower.
Looks like there's an expedition map here. We do know that Calcano does have a Boseiju.
Big question to me is, does Calcano already have the tower in his hand? Had the
Right.
option to select it there, of course, with the Ancient Stirrings and elected not to. And I think that's somewhat notable at this stage of things, as Javier is maybe thinking...
Saga here?
Yeah, maybe thinking Saga.
Okay. I feel like the risk is pretty high here to perhaps just tick up the Karn. What if Calcano untaps and plays his own Karn?
That's a concern. Now, the exchange there is, okay, you play a Karn, you tower Karn, kill my Karn. Okay.
Right.
Javier has a One Ring, has Tron mana, and has a lot of draw steps.
It's a lot of Karn targets.
Right, so-
right, yeah. Which
so-
one do you target?
Well, yeah, so to me, it's just Javier has the opportunity, if that exchange takes place, which is Karn, kill your Karn, Javier says, okay, I'll untap, I'll draw a card for my turn, I'll draw a couple cards from the One Ring, I have access to at least 8 mana on my turn, I could probably do something pretty powerful.
Right.
Now, end of the day, that Karn's just going to take care of a land.
Yeah, Javier's like, you know what? I'm just not even going to bother about that. Bother thinking about this back and forth.
Yep.
I'm just going to continue destroying your resources.
That's right. So what can Calcano do to rebuild now? Karn basically playing the role of double Stone Rain, which is oftentimes what it does in this
Good
matchup.
enough.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Especially with the follow-ups here.
Now there's that tower. Not too surprised that he had it, given the Ancient Stirrings, but there it is nonetheless. And now Javi's going to go a little bit deeper. Saga's going to go on 2 counters, as will the One Ring. 2 cards coming here for Javi. Just going to start by tapping that Urza's Mine for 2 colorless. Let's bring it down to 1 with a Chromatic Star. Sacrifice that star, filter it for a green. So green floating, new card coming.
Ancient Stirrings most likely here for Javier.
And there is that Stirrings.
Okay.
Top 5, it's a surprise. 4, 5.
Don't see a threat there.
Nope. A couple of O-Stones and a One Ring among those 5 cards.
If he's interested in resetting the ring, probably don't need to anytime soon here.
It looks like it's going to be the Tower of Power.
Maximum mana here.
It's any order. Llevo así todo el día.
No, pero yo digo, es any order.
Ya, pero
It's an old card.
llevo así todo el día. Ya. Para la mano.
Tower is the selection. Fun
Another
banner
one, huh?
between these two.
Yeah. Don't think he's played a land for the turn here, right? So
Not yet.
can play the tower, does have access to 9 mana this turn. See a Sundering Titan in hand? Just another large
I'm at
threat
20
potentially?
minutes.
We know there's a Metamorph there.
Okay.
Looks
Nothing
like-
great to copy.
yeah, it looks like Javi may have brought in Sundering Titan. It's really not the scariest thing in the world if you're Calcano if Sundering Titan hits the battlefield. It's
Right.
a 7/10. I mean, that's not nothing, but you can...
It's,
if Calcano... If
it's some pressure.
yeah, I mean, if Calcano
right.
has a mine, he can take a hit or two.
Yeah.
And then maybe do something more powerful.
Right. The problem is that One Ring that's still on the battlefield.
That is
right?
that is the biggest concern right now.
Yeah.
That looms over this entire game as the Haywire Mite's going to come across for 1. Calcano's going to fall down to 19. And I suppose it is worth noting, and I think this is why Javi may have searched for this card, that Urza Saga does have the ability to crank out some constructs that are pretty large
Yeah.
and also provide pressure and search for something. So here will be
It's
the
just,
Titan.
Just an 8 mana 7/10.
Yep.
Here you go. All right, Calcano. Do you have the missing Tron piece here to put up a fight?
Be a really good time to have Urza's Mine.
Es lo que tengo.
Be a really good time to have Urza's Mine.
Do you have it? We know he's got a Boseiju.
Mm-hmm.
You could use that to get Titan off the battlefield, right? You can just kill the Titan. Would need to find a green source, though.
Well, look, I like a good sweat as much as the next gamer. Calcano's going to make us wait.
Big turn here.
Indeed.
That's away. That is away.
And you can kind of hear Christian vocally talking this game out, trying to figure out exactly how do I get back into this.
12 wins is an extremely important number.
Indeed, it is indeed.
It was the magic number in previous Pro Tours, right? 12 wins and you're into the top 8, so
It's Gemstone Caverns. That's not Nurz's mine. This is an
Okay.
expedition map which can lead to an Nurz's mine. And
Right.
head back over to Javi.
Yeah, but Javi is just so far ahead on resources here.
Y luego la turrada.
Got the board advantage, going to be drawing 4 cards this turn, 1 for the draw step, 3 from the ring.
Estás en 20, ¿no? 19.
Extremely likely to find something like an Ulamog here.
Now, there is that trigger on the stack for Urza's Saga,
Right.
and exactly what Javier wants to do with it. You see him set aside the Saga
Draw
and a
first.
mine. So,
Tres.
up to
Yeah.
3.
If he finds an Ulamog, will not make a construct.
Ahí.
Doesn't look like much of anything there with that one ring activation. If there was a walking ballista, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can use this to find a star, a map. I do see a hangerback. Excuse me, not a hangerback. The other XX.
Yeah, it's a walking
artifact.
ballista,
It's
yep.
a walking ballista. So let's just see here if that's an attack for 8. Not quite enough to kill Calcano immediately.
Yeah.
Can make a 5/5 ballista here.
I forget what that thing does.
With a Tron land, it would be a 6/6.
And it looks like Javi just floated a mana with the Urza Saga. So remember, this all takes place in main phase 1. So Javier does have a mana floating at this stage of things as he's going to search up an expedition map.
Okay. Could use this to make sure that if Javier doesn't win this turn, you can still just go get a Boseiju and prevent Calcano from having Tron next turn. Then play out a giant walking ballista.
Un maná.
Javi just needs to make sure exactly what he wants to do with all of this mana right now. And Calcano's going to take a read there of the Saga, refamiliarize himself with that card.
Un maná. Me queda
So,
un maná por ahí, ¿vale?
Going to sacrifice the map.
Yeah, I don't see how Christian can win here if Javier simply finds a Boseiju
Yep.
to break apart the Tron and then just attack with the Titan and the Haywire Might and then play a giant walking ballista,
And
right?
just get it over with over the course
Yeah.
of 2 turns.
Con el maná que me
So
queda,
there's a basic forest, there's a Boseiju. And remember, Javier had a mana floating, so that plus the green from the forest allows the Boseiju activation. And that's going to blow up the Urza's tower. Calcano may respond here by sacrificing the map, but Javi's doing a very nice job of finally, after a couple of activations of the One Ring, putting pressure on while also disrupting Calcano's mana.
Y te pegaré de 8, ¿vale?
So this is going to be an attack for 8. Calcano's going to fall down to 11.
Pegaré de 8.
And Javier extremely close here to being the first person to lock up a slot here
Yeah,
in the top 8 of the Pro Tour.
13 was our magic number here this weekend, and Javier is 1 turn away from that 13th victory here
Y tú vas.
for his hometown
Yep.
Pro Tour in Spain.
Representing Spain here, home turf, gets to sleep on his own bed,
I'm in best feeling in the world.
relax. No jet lag here for Javier.
We're going to head back Christian's way here in just a moment. You do see the lands for him, not generating nearly as much mana as Javi is.
Yep. I suppose land One Ring from Calcano could make it so that he gets to breathe for 1 turn.
By a little time.
Just a smidge.
Just a little. Calcano winning this game, it's not impossible, but it is rather improbable.
Alguna combinación hay, ¿eh?
No sé si yo la puedo encontrar.
Extremely unlikely.
Oh, there's a Tower of Power.
A ver si entre los dos.
Tower number 3. Okay. That's not going to do it.
Daniazo, ¿no?
That's a Karn.
No, el anillo no.
12 damage on the battlefield.
Yeah, even Karn shutting down Walking Bliss's ability to
Right.
shoot doesn't really matter in this
Yep.
instance. So
Ay, mi madre. 1, 2, 3.
you see
So these anillos están
Calcano is
complicados,
doing
¿eh?
the
Oye,
counting
estoy
here,
mal.
and these players will shake on it.
Mira.
And Calcano will show it. Javier Dominguez is going to win this game and match over his good friend Christian Calcano. The mono green Tron mirror goes to the member of Team Handshake. And Paul, we have our first player confirmed in our top 8, and he's pretty darn happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a little bit bittersweet if you're Javier. It's, of course, fantastic to lock up that slot, but you know that these two are extremely close friends, and, you know, potentially knocking your friend out of a potential top 8 slot, still not the best, right?
Look, beating your friends is never a good feeling at the beginning of the tournament or the end of the tournament,
right.
But sometimes it's a thing that does have to happen, and Calcano took it in good spirits. Javier Dominguez, another top 8 on the resume. Congratulations to him. More magic coming right now. Let's get ready to rock and roll. It'll be Jake Beardsley, who is playing in his first Pro Tour and doing a very impressive job in it. 11-3, still very much in top 8 contention, piloting Rakdos Evoke against Sean Goddard, a.k.a. the Beekeeper on Magic Online. 5-color creativity is Sean's weapon of choice. Both these players still very much in the thick of things with 2 things left here in Barcelona. And we're going to turn our attention to game number 3. Should I ask you who won the first one? And then I can ask you who won the second one. You see the opening hand?
Right.
7 cards for both players. Thoughts he's going to kick us off.
All right. Probably going to be taking the Ren and 7 here. Excuse me, Ren and 6.
And there goes the powerful Planeswalker. The rest of the cards here are Flame/Reprieve, Indomitable Creativity, and a couple of fetch lands in Arid Mesa and Bloodstained Mire.
Yeah, and the fetch lands, of course, can be used to fix your mana, but of course also in this deck, you can use it to fetch copies of Dwarven Mine, right?
Yes, indeed.
Get the Dwarven Mine, generate some 1/1 tokens, cast Indomitable Creativity, and put some Archon of Cruelties onto the battlefield.
That is the name of the game with this 5-color creativity deck. Now, this was a deck coming into the event that I think people may have expected to see more of, but it was having some difficulty for a lot of teams in the testing process, we found. So they expected this deck to be one that was very powerful and consistent, and most players elected to move away from it. Sean Goddard, not one of them, and is doing just fine with the powerful 5-color deck.
Yeah, the big thing here is the One Ring. The rise of the One Ring has made it so that this deck was worsely positioned in this format, mostly because prior to the Lord of the Rings, this was considered to be the best, one of the best decks in the format.
Yes, indeed.
But now, if your opponents just slam a One Ring, all of a sudden, if you cast Indomitable Creativity, put an Archon of Cruelty into play, it cancels that ability.
Yeah. Because you have that protection. So, Reprieve did delay a Ragavan that was being dashed, and in the meantime, there's a Ren in 6. Ren in 6 does come down, gonna get a land, gonna pass it back over to Jake Beardsley, who will sacrifice a Verdant Catacomb. So, Beardsley down to 13. Blood Crypt is the land of choice, and this will be a Blood Moon. This will be a sacrifice of that Arid Mesa very, very quickly here for Sean, and we'll see what land he is interested in. It'll be a basic Plains.
Because there are Leyline bindings in the deck with a Plains and a Mountain in play. It would cost 4 mana for Sean to get that Blood Moon off the battlefield.
I imagine for Sean there's also a little interest in having that land in the graveyard as well for that Ren in 6. So Sean was going to draw a card here. And we'll activate the Planeswalker, get an Arid Mesa. Of course, it is a Mountain at the moment, and simply going to pass the turn back. Will Sean back over to Jake.
But Sean's got to be feeling pretty good here. Jake, without one of those extremely scary starts that this deck is capable of, with the turn 1 Grief, potentially.
This will be a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Chapter 1 yields a 2/2 Goblin Shaman for Jake, as Bloodstained Mire will be returned here from Sean. Sean will Flame Slash away that Goblin, and we are going to head back Jake's way. Chapter 2 on the Fable, the option to draw and discard a couple of cards now here for Jake.
Going to be digging for some action here. Put some pressure on Sean's life total. See a couple of lightning bolts there. Ragavan not great anymore.
Well, and Jake decided he doesn't have any interest in drawing or discarding.
Yeah.
He said, I got what I need, or at least I believe that I do.
My hand is... Oh!
Yeah, now here is a Ragavan.
And you
That's the
hit a Wren.
Yeah, now this is interesting if there's any interest in casting that or not.
I mean, it's so tempting here, right? I mean, you can play it, get a land from the graveyard.
And it looks like the answer to that is going to be no. So we're going to head back Sean's way, who, of course, is having some difficulties with the mana, is threatening, or getting close to, I should say, a Wren and 6 emblem with the Planeswalker at 6 loyalty.
Yeah.
And now let's make it 7. No landing it back, but
right, can't crack those fetch lands just yet with the Blood Moon that is in play.
And now there is an Orcish Bowmaster.
All right.
Bowmaster's going to do a little bit of controlling of the Planeswalker.
Right. Gets to whittle it down.
And now Fable the Mirrorbreaker will transform into Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Not active yet, of course, as it does leave the battlefield and come back, but next turn some copying could begin.
Yeah, copying Bowmaster is not the worst thing in the world.
A little bit of value there.
Yeah.
And now here comes Bowmaster and its friend, going to go directly at Sean's life total.
The face. Remember, there are 2 lightning bolts in Jake's hand here.
And another Fable now.
Okay. So Sean effectively at 5 life here.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a potential lethal attack next turn. Sean probably going to want to fire off this Wren on the Bowmasters that's in play.
Yeah, the question is, does Sean know it? That is the big question. Yeah, we don't have a good feel for what is in Sean's hand right now. It's kind of a copy of Indomitable Creativity. That's not particularly useful at the moment.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I mean, it feels to me that you probably, there's nothing to get back here. Jake has also not shown an interest in going after the Wren, going straight after the life total of Sean. But if you look at what's in play, it's 5 damage that Jake's representing on board, plus the 2 lightning bolts, that's 11. If Sean doesn't have a removal spell here, this could just be the game.
Could be, as the Voidwalker is going to get discarded to the 2nd chapter of Fable the Mirrorbreaker. This is a Ragavan that's looking to be dashed. And this will be an attack.
Get in there.
It looks like it did connect. Another treasure here. Well, before that, pardon me, that's a lightning bolt.
So down to 6. Double lightning bolt.
And that is going to do it. Jake Beardsley in his first Pro Tour is continuing those winning ways. 12-3 and 1 win away from locking up a top 8 here in Barcelona.
Not a bad start, I will say. Not a bad start here.
And I think we got somebody to hug. I think we got somebody to hug. And with good reason, a huge, huge win here for Jake. And I'd be pumped up too.
Yeah, congratulations to Jake Beardsley here. Picking up that 12th win. Really, really important here. Gonna probably need at least 12 to make it into that top 8.
Congratulations to Jake. Blood Moon. We have seen games like that before with that card when people try to get a little frisky with their mana bases, either be Tron lands or a 5-color deck. There are answers in the format to stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it just completely shut off Sean's plan. He had the pieces in his hand. He was even able to draw a bunch of lands to kind of keep things off the board. But you need tokens. You need to make tokens to be able to cast those creativities, but was unable to do so due to the power of that powerful enchantment.
Yeah, Blood Moon. It can be fun. There's just fun. What's
fun for somebody?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a 0-sum card if I've ever seen one. Well, folks, 15 rounds are in the books. That means we got just 1 more to go here from Pro Tour, The Lord of the Rings. We're going to take a short break here. You are going to be taken home by Riley and Corey, but before we get there, you get to hang out with Maria and Monty in all the top 8 scenarios right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour, the Lord of the Rings from Barcelona, Spain. We are deep into the action here on day 2